Hi folks, we've already had President's Day. This is our program called President's Night. Oh, but in President's Day, I hope you got a good bargain. How much did you pay for your president? Okay, now to President's Night. Actually, I did this some time ago. I think it appeared in The Voice, but the voices got very hoarse, and the voice is very old today, and it's gotten hoarse, and it's barely readable. And this is a section series called Great Quotations from the Presidents. And we'll start with the first president. Remember him, George? What was his name? I think he was named after a city. He was named after the capital. Washington, right. George Washington, who was the first president. He was also reputed to be the richest man in America. His wife owned half of the state of Kentucky. He also owned 216 slaves, and he was a wonderful fighter for freedom, except for certain people that were not free. But he did do one thing. He, contrary to Jefferson, another great president, upon his death and his will, he freed the slaves. Jefferson, the great liberal, didn't have that in his will. Maybe because too many of the slaves were his own children. But then he wouldn't, so he didn't want to be separated. He didn't want his family to be separated. That was probably the reason he didn't free his slaves. So here's the great quotation from George Washington. Government is not reason, it is not eloquence, it is force. He proved that in his conduct of the war, for instance. He hung certain deserters to teach them a lesson. And he also, was that him? No, that was Lincoln. And he did that in Cambridge, glorious Cambridge. So somehow the people who fought in the war, there's a whole theory that I sort of believe that this was hardly a war for democracy and independence, because the government at that time was run by what were called the king's men. They were all appointed directly by the king. There were no elections here at all. And no native American could rise to high office or high power. So the American upper class, the native born, not the native Indians, but the native whites, wanted the lawyers, the merchants, the landowners, the slave owners. They wanted to run things because this was a colonial empire, and, for instance, nothing could be manufactured here. It was a source of raw materials that was mined, and crops were grown and taken out, tobacco, sugar, like in the West Indies. And the products were returned at a much higher cost to the colonials. I think it was called mercantilism, a very good system, still in effect in many parts of the world. Now, The second president was John Adams, and his quotation is, "The moment the idea is admitted into society that property is not as sacred as the laws of God, and there is not a force of law and public justice to," by the way, justice, Kropotkin had a four-word definition of justice. Justice. You know, organized vengeance called justice. Okay. But not a force of law and public justice to protect it, anarchy and tyranny commence. The third Jew's name was, no, the third president's name was Thomas Jefferson. This is his self-composed epitaph engraved on his tomb. Here was buried Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of Independence, of the Statute of Virginia for Religious Freedom, and the father of the University of Virginia. Didn't say who the mother was. Notice he omitted the incidental fact that he was the third president of the United States of America. I wonder why. Well, maybe it isn't that important. Wasn't. Small, powerless country. Hadn't conquered anybody but some Indians. It did exploit slaves. It was worth. He should have been proud of that. James Madison, number 4. Now this is very prophetic and pathetic. A universal and perpetual peace. It is to be feared, is in the catalog of events which will never exist, but in the imagination of visionary philosophers or in the breasts of benevolent enthusiasts. What an optimist. Unfortunately, at least as far as the U.S. was concerned, let's say Costa Rica doesn't have an army, so there's a beginning. 5, James Monroe, 1817, his inaugural address. The heart of every citizen must expand with joy when he reflects how near our government has approached to perfection. The Monroe Doctrine, which succeeded in keeping Latin America, a few hundred million people in America, in the United States' thrall for hundreds of years. Somehow a lot of Latin Americans don't think the Monroe Doctrine is so wonderful. Now, number 6, John Quincy Adams, his diary of June 4th, 1819. He sort of got it right. I am a man of reserved, cold, austere, and forbidding manners, my political adversaries say. A gloomy misanthropist. And my personal enemies, an unsocial savage. I think maybe he got it right. Got it right. Number 7, Andrew Jackson, the great American hero, general. He fought the battle. He wrote the song "Battle of New Orleans." No, he fought the song. No, he fought the Battle of New Orleans, which was a battle which was fought with some loss of life after a peace treaty had already been signed. Only it took like weeks for the information to get to North America from Europe, I guess, where it was signed.
So who was able to vote for these early presidents?
Oh yeah, who was able to vote? I'm glad you brought that up. Almost nobody. 10% of the American population was able to vote for the Constitution. You had to own
Property.
Yeah, and slaves were property, so a lot of slave owners could vote. You had to be what color?
White.
Yeah, we probably couldn't even vote. You couldn't be a
Woman.
and
Indian.
oh yowza, you could not be a black man or woman or child.
Well, at least the line at the voting booth wasn't too long, I guess.
Yeah, I think they used to pay you off in liquor, the people who try to bribe you. So Andrew Jackson is always presented as a military hero. Yeah, he was a military man because he was the first one to dispossess whole tribes of Native Americans, pushed them west, till they got to the Pacific even, it happened. So that's the great Andrew Jackson. Also, he didn't like bankers, so no one can be all bad. He said, to the bankers, "You are a den of vipers and thieves. I intend to rout you out. And by the eternal God, I will rout you out." So I think he established, what did he do? Maybe the first national bank. Anyway, tried to put the bankers in their place. I don't know why a national bank would be better than the Federal Reserve. I think that's even a private. We don't understand money. It's all magical. You hand someone paper and they give you an automobile. That's magic, isn't it?
You don't hand them paper and they throw you out of your apartment.
Right, and if it's the wrong paper. Yeah.
Right, not enough paper.
Not enough paper. Or gold. Here's Martin Van Buren, 1837. Speaking of Native Americans. The decrease in numbers of the tribes within the limits of the states and territories has been most rapid. If they be removed, they can be protected from those associations and evil practices which exert so pernicious and destructive an influence over their destinies. They can be induced to labor and to acquire property. And its acquisition will inspire them with a feeling of independence or poverty, or lack of property with poverty. Their minds can be cultivated and they can be taught the value of salutary and uniform laws and be made sensible of the blessings of free government. What a sort of contradiction those two terms are together. If you're governed by someone,
how can you be
you're not free.
No.
Like a governess
right.
Of a child, the child is not free. That's why they're the governess.
Yeah, that's an oxymoron.
What?
Oxymoron, it's called.
Yeah, oxymoron.
Like jumbo shrimp.
And be made sensible of the blessings of free government and capable of enjoying its advantages. To enable the government to redeem this pledge to the Indians and to afford adequate protection to its own citizens will require the continual presence of a considerable regular military force on the frontiers and the establishment of a change of permanent army posts. Makes sense. William Henry Harrison, number 9, inaugural address. It was the remark of a Roman consul in an early period that celebrated republic, Then a most striking contrast was observable in the conduct of candidates for offices of power and trust before and after obtaining them. They seldom carrying out, in the latter case, the pledges and promises made in the former. However much the world may have improved in many respects in the lapse of upward of 2,000 years, since the remark was made by the virtuous and indignant Roman, I fear that a strict examination of the annals of some of the modern elective governments would develop similar instances of violated confidence. But the lapse of a few months will confirm or dispel their fears about me. It was true, because he was such a macho guy that he appeared in public in the inaugural procession, which was at the dead of winter, without any outer clothing. He had been a general, right? I believe. And he caught a cold and died within 2 months.
That's a lesson.
That was a lesson. Let's have some
Yeah.
illustrations about elections,
All right.
since we're dealing with the greatest elections of all, right? Why don't you read the French? I'll read the...
All right. Let me focus in on that. It says election piège à con.
Don't tell them
Elections.
what con really means. We can't say that.
No, we can't say it, but
And,
it's usually
but
translated
It's translated as
fools.
a trap for fools. Where is my...
Tell us who Le Pen is.
oh, yeah, we want to know that. Yeah, here's my board.
Here.
Le Pen is the current rather ugly and, well, it's a guy I don't like, who's the president of France. He lives in, he comes to he used to come to New Hampshire he's an American enthusiast, so he supports everything now that America does.
Uh-huh.
And Penn is a French fascist and racist. So you vote for Sarkozy and you get Penn.
Hmm.
They're allied. And the other side says a president of the opposite of constipation for a country of fools.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let me get a better picture of that.
What?
I didn't get a picture of what it says on the bottom, the marching.
Oh, you can read it, I think, but the country of fools, together with an expletive that we won't repeat.
Oh, okay.
In English.
Right, we can't say that, right.
Now, speaking of Americans, you, Will Rogers, most of you people were under the age of 100. No. I won't know who Will Rogers is. He's a great American humorist and of the 20s.
Ooh.
He was a Native American, or a half-breed, as they terribly say. More elections are decided between sundown and sunup than between sunup and sundown. Get it?
Uh-huh.
And this is a vote-stealing control panel.
Hmm.
And this presidency is brought to you by Diebold.
Hmm.
You don't count because we don't count. Very clever.
Yeah.
From the Book of Proverbs. Let's do one more at this time. This I found a long time ago, but it seems so beautifully appropriate. And it reads, it's called Great Moments in the History of Politics, and it reads, the new cabinet? Well, this was from Simplicissimus, German paper in 1928 by Thomas Theodor Heine. Great moments in the history of politics. The new cabinet, these faces certainly look familiar.
Let's see those faces. All right, let's look close. Let's see.
Got
The more things change. No, we don't have the faces yet. I can't see what it is. The new cabinet. What is it? They're people. Oh, I see. Yeah, right. That's right. All right.
We got it?
Yeah, got it.
Beautifully drawn.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of moonshine.
All right. Well, let's go back to the words. How much time do we have?
About 8 minutes.
All right. 8 minutes. Okay. 10th President. John
Maybe
Tyler.
7 minutes. 7 minutes. 10th President.
John Tyler, 1844. He's praising the election process. The great objection which has always prevailed against the election by the people of their chief executive officer has been the apprehension of tumults and disorders which might involve and ruin the entire government. The great moral spectacle has been exhibited of a nation approximating in number to 20 million people, having performed the high and important function of electing their chief magistrate for the term of 4 years. That sounds like a prison term, doesn't it? Term. Without the commission of any acts of violence or the manifestation of a spirit of insubordination to the laws. Vast multitudes have assembled from time to time for the purpose of canvassing the merits and pretensions of those who were presented for their self-interest. I wonder what his pretensions were. But no armed soldiery has been necessary to restrain with proper limits the popular zeal or to prevent violent outbreaks. Not yet, right? All right, let's finish this section with James Polk, Message to Congress, July 6, 1848. While the war, this is the Mexican War, remember that war, has been conducted with great humanity and forbearance and with complete success on our part, the peace has been concluded on terms the most liberal and magnanimous to Mexico. New Mexico and Upper California have been ceded by Mexico. Here's what I added. This included all of present-day California, Nevada, and Utah, almost all of Arizona and New Mexico, and parts of Colorado and Wyoming. In addition, the treaty legitimized the acquisition, in quotes, of Texas. It reduced the total territory of Mexico by 2/5 and almost doubled the size of the United States. Let me repeat this part. And with complete success on our part, the peace has been concluded on terms the most liberal and magnanimous to Mexico. There were Americans that wanted to get all of Mexico, too. There still are. New Mexico and Upper California have been ceded by Mexico to the United States and now constitute a part of our country, embracing nearly 10 degrees of latitude, lying adjacent to the Oregon Territory and extending from the Pacific Ocean to the Rio Grande, a mean distance of nearly 1,000 miles. It would be difficult to underestimate the value of these possessions to the United States. They constitute of themselves a country large enough for a great empire, and their acquisition is second only in importance to that of Louisiana in 1803. Rich in mineral and agricultural resources, with a climate of great salubrity. They embrace the most important ports on the whole Pacific coast and the continent of North America. The possession of the ports of San Diego and Monterey and the Bay of San Francisco will enable the United States to command the already valuable and rapidly increasing commerce of the Pacific. Commerce. The number of our whale ships alone now employed in that sea exceeds 700, requiring more than 20,000 seamen to navigate them, while the capital invested in this particular branch of commerce is estimated at not less than $40 million. The excellent harbors of Upper California will, under our flag, afford security and repose to our commercial maritime. And American mechanics will soon furnish ready means of shipbuilding and repair, which are now so much wanted in that distant sea. By the acquisition of these possessions, we are brought into immediate proximity with the west coast of America, from Cape Horn to the Russian possessions north of Oregon, with the islands of the Pacific Ocean, and by a direct voyage in steamers, we will be in less than 30 days from Canton and other ports of China. Now, here's the best. In this vast region, whose rich resources are soon to be developed by American energy and enterprise, great must be the supplementation of our commerce, and with it new and profitable demands for mechanic labor in all of its branches, and new and valuable markets for our manufactures and agricultural products. We have one more now?
1 minute.
1 minute, okay. This was on the Weekly World News, the most explosive sex scandal in U.S. history. I slept with 5 presidents. Remember that?
Yeah.
But
it looks like a bed bug.
Guy saying?
That's a bed bug.
It's a bed bug, and it's
oh
saying,
my God.
She lies.
Ooh,
I was
hold
the
it
one.
Up, hold it up. I can't see that bed bug.
I was the one, the bed bug says. She lies. I was the one who slept with these presidents.
I believe it. There's such a bed bug invasion. Look at that.
All right, so we'll be back again, maybe with more presidents, until there are no more presidents.
All right.
When will we be able to have some?